Michaela Chester here with NCAA Digital. I am joined by Wayne Cavadi, our NCAA.com expert in all things D2 sports. Wayne just released his D2 men's basketball preseason Power 10 rankings, broke down his top 10 teams ahead of the season. We're going to take that a step further, Wayne. We're going to talk about some of those rankings and also make some predictions for the rest of the season. So let's start out with your top five. Can you take me through your top five teams in your rankings?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going against the Bearcats at number one. Northwest Missouri State, they just opened the season at the Small College Basketball Hall of Fame Classic. And if you listen to the players and Coach Ben McCollum after both games, you would have thought they lost. Instead, they came out of there 2-0 against two preseason top 25 teams. This is the team to beat. It has been for 5 years now. They're 159-8 over 5 seasons with 3 national championships. You could say they probably would have had a fourth if it weren't for the 2020 year. Almost everyone is back, and that includes 2 Bevo Francis Award candidates in Trevor Hudgens and Diego Bernard. I love Flagler. They're my number 2. A lot of people remember this team's incredible run to the national semifinals. That's fresh in everyone's mind. But let's not forget this is a team that took down 2 D1 teams in a span of 10 days to start last season. Jay Zaglati is one of the best scorers in D2, and he's back. Chris Metzger is one of the best bigs in D2, and he's back. But the intriguing thing is that they get 2 D2 transfers who are both all-conference in their respective conferences last year. So this team got better, which isn't really fair to a lot of people. West Texas A&M is simply incredible. They lost 2 of the best players in all of D2 in Quay Grant and Joel Murray. And instead of having a ton of question marks, they go out and they swept 3 opponents that were ranked or receiving votes in the preseason poll, and they won the D2 CCA Tip-Off Classic. Coach Tom Brown, he just gets to the D2 Elite 8. That's what he does every year, and it looks like he's got a team to do it again this year. I really like Hillsdale. They had 21 wins last season, and they have 12 players back from that team. One of them is Patrick Cartier, who's a Player of the Year candidate. He already has a GMAC Freshman of the Year and Player of the Year award under his belt. He makes that team tough to beat. And then I have Colorado Mesa rounding out my top 5. They had a rough start at the Tip-Off Classic. They went 1-2, but they have 7 of their top 8 scorers back. I'm not ready to rule them out just yet after a small sample size.
So if you had to pick right now, Northwest Missouri State is your national championship pick.
Yeah, it's not so much a bold prediction at this point anymore, but that's the team I'm sticking with.
All right, how about National Player of the Year if you had to pick one and some names to know for this season?
I already named some of the few that you got to keep your eyes on in Hudgens, Bernard, Lottie, Metzger, Cartier. But there's, just real quick, some other players I really like are Andrew Sishko from Damon. He's been the best big man in the nation for what seems like an eternity now with the extra eligibility and the tournaments that they make. And I don't see that changing at all. He's just so dominant inside, and he's fun to watch. I really like Armani Foster from Indiana, PA. I think people forget how good he is because they didn't play last season. Kenny Dye at Queens and Tyler Guyman at Washburn are 2 guys that don't have stats that jump off the page at you because they do everything well. And they're without a doubt 2 of the most important people in D2 basketball for what they do to their teams. They elevate their teams. And part of the Bevo Francis Award, which is the Player of the Year for D2, is what they do for their teams. And then I'm just going to throw out, these aren't by any means the last 2 names, like I said, but I'm going to throw out Patrick Robinson and Will Yoakum, both on West Liberty, that I think are going to be Player of the Year candidates. The Hilltoppers are always one of the highest scoring teams in the league, and we know that scoring points gets you on that list, and I think they're both going to be on that watch list.
Do you have any sleeper teams we should keep an eye on?
Sleepers are a little weird this year because you have tournament contenders like Nova Southeastern, IUP, Chico State, all these teams that didn't play last year. So I feel like people forgot about them. Does that mean they're a sleeper, or it's just they're going to need 3 games to be like, oh yeah, those guys are really good? So I'm going to give you 3 teams that I think are true sleepers. And one is Southern Indiana, who I feel people are sleeping on because they lost their 2 top scorers, but I think they've returned enough and got some nice pieces that are going to make them strong again. I really like Ashland. They return a slew of talent. They're in a new conference, so I think that will be very interesting. And they just beat a D1 team last week, so that's always a good start to your season. And then I think the Lee Flames, they've quietly been a really good team the past few seasons, and I think they're another tournament-bound team this coming season.
All right, lastly, Wayne, my favorite question to ask. I'm going to have you make one bold take for this season.
So, like I said, saying Northwest Missouri State going to the finals is not a bold take. That's a pretty easy pick at this point. But if memory serves me correctly, we haven't had a championship game rematch in quite some time. So since we're going bold, I'm going to say that we're going to have a championship game rematch, but it's not going to be the 2021 version of Northwest Missouri State versus West Texas A&M, but the 2019 version of Northwest Missouri versus Point Loma, who just beat D1 Pepperdine by, I believe it was 22 points. So this team is ready to be back in action. They're always a championship contender, and I think we see a championship rematch this year.
Absolutely. That sounds fun. Let's see if it happens this year. Wayne, thank you so much for taking the time joining me and breaking down your D2 men's basketball rankings and predictions for this year.
Thank you always for having me, and we'll meet up at tournament time and see how well I did.